Hello, my fellow readers. It is I, Dark Symphony 777, with another fan fiction review. As always, a link to the story will be in the description below. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel, click on that bell for notification, and leave a comment in the comment section below on your thoughts of the story, any future fan fictions you want me to read or review. And finally, this is my opinion. My opinion is not indicative of everyone in the world, so please respect that. So, we are here at the last Daria fic. It slipped. I actually have a brain for what the name is called. It slipped through my hands like a shadow, like a dream. By the Angsty Guy. This was actually the second story that Donna Olsen actually recommended to me. Right after I finished Daria 2007. But she had to have me watch a whole bunch of episodes. I watched all of season 1. I watched the first 4 episodes of season 2. And I saw a single episode of Beavis and Butthead. I did not like that Beavis and Butthead episode. Why? Because it's Beavis and Butthead, and I don't like that show. I still think that is the worst show I have ever seen. Live action or cartoon, that is the worst anything I've ever seen. God, I hate that cartoon. I hate Beavis and Butthead. But that's beside the point. I like Daria. But I love King of the Hill. I'll tell you what. So, before I get into the story, I'm going to open up this can of soda, because this is going to be a long one. Good soda. That's good soda. So, let us commence with the review. Now, in order to do this review right, I think it makes a very good point. It would make a very good point to compare and contrast this with Daria 2007, mainly because of how Donna said her messages. She basically said this is very much like Daria 2007, and she also wants me to do like an hour-long review. Let's see if I can get an hour. Let's see if I can turn a simple review that would probably at best be like 30 minutes into an hour. So, the first thing we have to establish is the theme. Before I actually want to get into the actual plot, I at least want to establish the themes and also answer a question that Donna said. Donna asked me, is this story as dark or darker than Daria 2007? No, I do think it's as dark as 2007. However, I do think it is dark. They both have very depressing themes. They're just done very differently. Daria 2007 deals with depression and suicidal tendencies and, survivors, lots of mental stuff. But so does this story, dealing with mental retardation, dealing with broken families, dealing with abandonment issues. They're both dark, but they're both done different ways. But I do think Daria 2007 is darker because I just think the ideas there are executed better than the story, which kind of really is shot in the foot by the fact that this story that it slipped through my hands is just there we go. Is honestly way too short to kind of really get into the themes as good as Daria 2007 was, but it's good enough that, I can't really bash the story that much. So, now to answer that question, let's get to the actual review. So, in this story, the plot follows Daria, but this time, instead of Daria, who's dealing with survivor skills, who's constantly depressed, and, she's trying to find her way. This Daria is actually mentally retarded. I'm not speaking hyperbole. That is actually what they call her in the story, like mental retardation. That's the actual term they use in the story. And so basically, she's mentally deficient. It's causing a lot of stress on her family. So we're introduced right off the bat to the main characters of Daria and Aunt May. Aunt May was the character introduced in season 2, episode 4 of Daria, who's basically like an older Daria. And so the story kind of follows Aunt May trying to take care of not only trying to help her life, but also trying to help Daria's life. And the story just basically rolls on from there. It's the main reason why I think Daria 2007 is darker, because this one just is more depressing than just full up dark. But the story does deal with dark themes. Daria is feeling a genuine abandonment from her family, because her family is kind of fracturing because of all the stress they have to do to take care of Daria, because she's mentally deficient and everything. All the stress is coming down on Aunt May, who Helen is kind of pushing all this responsibility on her, and it's slowly wearing on her mental state over the course of the story. We actually see Aunt May's mental being kind of darkening over the course of the story. Excuse me. And then, so the story basically starts out with Aunt May complaining that why is she abandoning her daughter, and then Aunt May kind of helping Daria out, being nice overall, supportive, stuff like that, and wanting to just help out. And so they're moving from their original town from Highland to Lawndale, like normal Daria, but Aunt May takes her. They travel across country, kind of helping her out. Like, why is no one really helping you? And Daria is kind of facing the fact that she doesn't really have anyone to help her besides Aunt May. She has no friends. Her family pretty much hates her. Quinn just flat out calls her a retard. It's kind of true in a technical sense, but saying potato sort of deal. And so the story goes when they show up in Lawndale, they actually run into Jane, and so Aunt May is constantly putting her life on hold to help Daria, because Daria's family is constantly just leaving her behind, and I really like how the plot went with especially the subtlety in Aunt May's character. I'll get more into that in the character area. But over the course of the plot, Aunt May's character kind of decays. Now, it's kind of a weird sort of case where at the beginning, she's very supportive, very, nice. And then they get to Lawndale, and her mental state, starts getting under the strain. Like, she's kind of becoming very, very cynical, depressed, stuff like that, because she's constantly being relied on to take care of Daria and her life, and that she wants to succeed. She's waiting for all the scripts and stuff like that to happen, and she basically she wants this fame. She likes fame, but she's constantly having her life ruined from all the stress that Daria has put on her, simply from being this version of Daria. And so Daria goes to Lawndale. However, the whole episode with the chocolate bars happen. Basically, this episode, Quinn, sells the chocolate and the lady eats it, but she's diabetic, and then she dies. And then everyone's going to Quinn. Everyone starts going after Quinn. So they go to the nature retreat that we see, I believe, at the end of season 1. Yeah, I think it's. Yeah. Sorry about that. Yeah, season 1, episode 12, I believe. The nature where they get to eat the berries and they get like really weird out. And Amy's life is constantly being disrupted, and then we see chapter 2 end with the lady actually full out dying, getting all these calls and saying we have to run. Takes Daria, takes Jane, who's actually kind of homeless in this one, and then they move to Aunt May's home. Roaches. Sorry about that. Sorry about that. I had something to kill real quick. So where was I? Oh yes, Aunt May takes Daria and Jane to to her house where we get like a time skip for some reason. And so, Jane is kind of taking care of Daria, stuff like that, playing goldfish, and then Aunt Amy gets two calls. One's an email actually saying that, hey, your script's being picked up. Like you're happy, yeah, you got it. But then she finds out all of Daria's family died from from the berries that they ate in the actual episode where they ate the berries and stuff like that. And they get like high, like sugar plum berry, white eyes, like oh. And then, in that episode, Daria, didn't eat them, so she actually calls, the cops to grab them and said, "Hey, my parents ate some weird berries." But she couldn't. But Amy couldn't figure out why they didn't get help this time. So it turns out Daria, because Helen said, "I'm not gonna take the phone." Daria took that, at face value, took her mom's phone and hid it. And that caused them to die because they couldn't call anyone. Which caused Amy to finally completely fracture and attack Daria for having everything that she loved, everything she cared for, completely shattered, completely broken, kind of leaving her a changed woman. And so we get another jump cut to Aunt Amy and her other sister saying that you can either take one of them or we have to put Daria into a mental health facility. And the sister, whose name I forget, just flat says no. But Aunt Amy kind of thinks about it, and it's where we get the last theme, the overarching theme that's kind of at the end of the story, but also kind of weirdly permeated throughout the entire story, and that is the central core being of human life, and that is selfishness. At the end of the day, when the chips are down, human people will always go to number one, being themselves. They will completely abandon everyone and everything, and it means their survival. And that is a very dark, but a very true. Like if the whole the joke that the tiger is chasing the two guys, and I gotcha. And the tiger is chasing the two guys. One guy says, "I have to run this out. We have to outrun the tiger," and the other guy goes, "No, we don't have to outrun the tiger. I just have to outrun you." And at the end of the day, when the chips are down and humanity and where our emotion, our personalities are laid bare, it will always come up to selfishness of self-survival. That is literally humankind. That's how everything will ever always be, like self-preservation before helping others. It's an actual human thing. It's very fascinating if you actually go into the research of it. How selfish people can get in times of absolute need. Like just look at what's happening in China. Like I know I'm going off topic, but this kind of relates to what I'm talking about. So for those who don't know, the world is dealing with this massive pandemic, coronavirus, as of this time of the recording. All my subscribers, for all I know, I could have the coronavirus because the thing takes so long to incubate. Sometimes you can even have it and not show any symptoms. Like, I always have a runny nose because, I just always have a runny nose because I'm always, clipping my nose hair, so it's that's weird. And I have a cough, so it's okay, so I couldn't, how do I know if I have the coronavirus? However, the backlash to this was due to the fact that it opened up people's eyes that we completely over-relied on China making all the goods. And when China's chips were down, did they continue? No, they completely halted all their exports and just hoarded everything, and that's caused everyone else to suffer, and people realizing that, wait, we don't have China anymore to build us all our stuff, to build us our medicine, to build us our food, to build us our furniture, electronics. Literally everything was starting to be made from China. And that's causing like a feedback loop of people realizing that this has to stop. The people are now realizing that our countries have to start putting manufacturing jobs on the place again and stop over-relying on China. Because if this happens again, and on a larger scale, because a lot of people in China are still either sick or they're dying, then it's gonna take years before we can trust China again enough to do this. So it's causing a sort of weird loop, and the fact that a sort of global self-preservation mode for China. Like, okay, Chinese for the Chinese, but everyone gets screwed over because and slowly countries and people around the world are starting to realize that we relied a little too much on China. So, there's my off topic for this video, but it is relevant to what I was talking about. And so basically, go back to the actual story. So Amy makes a decision. Be selfish and go into self-preservation mode and go follow the money, become rich, become a millionaire, because her script that she wrote is being sold for like millions. Or does she purposely ruin her life to be able to take care of Daria? In the end, her selfishness, her self-preservation won out in the end, and she took the contract, and she said, Daria can go screw herself, pretty much. She just throws Daria on the bus, and so Daria is forced to live in a mental institution. And then finally we get an epilogue of two orderlies kind of talking, and Jane showing up and the orderlies talking like, this lady was dangerous, this patient's dangerous, but this lady is just constantly showing up. And they talk about how Jane is still not giving up on Daria, and that she's willing to sacrifice her life if it means making Daria happy. So it lands on a bittersweet ending. Unlike Daria 2007, which kind of ends on a more happier ending with Jane and Daria, reuniting sort of deal. So I thought, it does fit. The ending does fit the story much better, especially the epilogue. I thought the epilogue was done perfectly with Jane, with the orderlies kind of talking about how this lady was constantly beat up, was scarred, and everything, but she's still not giving up because Jane, Daria, and to a lesser extent on Amy, helped Jane out so much that she's willing to put in the effort to try to go the 9 yards herself. So it kind of, but the bittersweetness is, one, Daria is stuck in a hospital, and two, Jane might actually go the same route as Aunt Amy, and her mental state slowly destroying itself to take care. So it's a self-perpetuating circle. Like, it just repeats. But overall, I do like the plot. I do, however, one essential point of the plot I have to talk about, to criticize, and that is the climax. I think the climax was done very poorly, basically, and this kind of reflects on the entire story. For those of you who don't know, a climax is a sort of turning point for the whole story. It's like usually like a big moment that everything's been building up to is usually called the climax. Like whether the story continues after that is up to the story and up to the writer. Like Lord of the Rings. there's multiple climaxes in each story. Like, it depends on what that. But usually, it's some kind of big scene that a lot of stuff has been going towards, and it's either it tapers off and goes down and goes to the end, or it splits apart to continue the story with more direction being revealed and leaves you wondering what's going on. I do think the climax was at least decent, I did not like the build-up. It was really, really rushed, to say the least. So basically, the climax starts when Daria and Jane are playing Go Fish. They're playing like 4-card Go Fish. Instead of the 2-card ones where you get one, you have to get all 4. And Aunt Amy's in her room, getting and she got the email from from her agent saying they're fighting, like all these studio networks are fighting for her script, which is basically a story about a lady helping taking her mentally retarded daughter out on a cross road trip, echoing Aunt Amy and Daria's relationship. And so she's like, hey, I'm happy, but then she kind of wonders what happened with Helen, Daria's mother. It's like, why I haven't heard from her? Because Helen is a workaholic, and so she'd be able to, like, why is she calling? And so Aunt Amy calls. She calls on her phone, but the phone appears in the kitchen. And Jane answers it and said, hey, wait a minute. Why is your phone? Wait, this is Helen's phone? Yeah. Why is Helen's phone in the kitchen? And so they talk, and then Daria reveals that, she left the phone because, her mental retardation. And that's actually a real thing. So it looks honestly like, Daria may have Asperger's syndrome. Asperger's is an actual is actually on the autism scale. So, so once Daria reveals that she took Paul's phone and hid it, Amy completely loses it. That's what I don't like. The complete and utter unnecessary escalation. Like, if over a slightly longer course of the story, like Amy, already like settling in and her starting to like kind of have the stress, because while we did see hints and pieces of it, it didn't really build. Like we just saw hints and then we just saw the blood, which is really, really sudden, and that's what I didn't like about the climax, because of the rapid escalation, completely out of nowhere, with no proper build-up, and that kind of reflected over the entire story. I actually reread the first half of it, and it kind of slightly the story kind of weakened in my eyes once I remembered what the climax was like, because a good climax could make or break a story. Like, even a bad story can be solved by a good enough climax, but this is not a good climax. It's a weak climax. I wouldn't say it's bad, but the way it's handled in the story, with how just completely rapid it is, because it's literally just Amy getting the call, Amy trying to call Helen, Jane picking up the phone and wondering why Helen's, finding out Helen's phone's in the drawer, Daria revealing that, she did it, and then, Daria inadvertently telling Aunt Amy, inadvertently telling Aunt Amy, and Aunt Amy losing it. Like I said, there was build-up when Daria and Aunt Amy were in the window of her home. Daria actually says, "I'm sorry," and then Aunt Amy loses it, saying, "Do you stop saying sorry?" And then Daria, kind of crying and going into her room. Like I said, there was slight build-up to it, but it's still not really good enough. We saw Aunt Amy kind of get angry, but we didn't see her mental state decay to the point, where this is kind of warranted. I think a better climax would have been, to Aunt Amy, kind of being frozen and trying to digest the whole situation, and then going into her psyche with everything, like, you know, with her, and then slowly cracking and falling apart. Like, I think the climax would have been better if we went into Aunt Amy's mindset in that scenario, and then her coming to the realization that her entire life fell apart because of Daria's mental condition, and then Aunt Amy loses and attacks Daria. You know, but we don't get that. We just get Aunt Amy just realizing that, you know, that Daria inadvertently caused the death for her family, and then it just attacks her. We don't get any mental like, ultimate corruption and decay from Aunt Amy of going into self-preservation mode. We don't get any of that, and I think that really weakened that part in my eyes. But overall, I did like the plot. I don't think it's as dark. It did explore mental issues, parental abandonment, and all sorts of that. It didn't get as dark as Daria 2007, because this one honestly seems more melancholic or depressive than dark in the other story. Characters. You basically have three characters: Amy, Daria, and Jane. I did like the subtle foreshadowing that Jane didn't abandon Daria, because the entire story took place from Aunt Amy's point of view. That much is true. And then when Jane started coming in, it was actually slowly to start putting her more into the point of view by you know. So basically, when the story first starts out, it's completely from Aunt Amy's point of view. You know, Aunt Amy's third point of view. But then we get a cameo from Jane Lane, and it's like, okay, it's still completely Aunt Amy. But then we're reintroduced with Jane Lane, and the story starts peppering, you know, the story taking place from Jane's point of view rather than Aunt Amy's, and it becomes more and more frequent as the story goes on, and then we get the climax, and then Aunt Amy more or less abandons Daria, but then we see Jane in the epilogue. We see the orderlies looking at Jane, taking care of Daria, showcasing that Jane didn't give up on her. I thought that was excellent foreshadowing, and also a great way to establish thematics and themes. I thought that was done excellently. Daria is not really so much snarky as in like lonely. She reminds me of Vivian from Better Off Alone, and the fact that she basically feels lonely. Like her family, like she feels that she has no family besides Aunt Amy. She's constantly saying sorry. She shows all the typical behaviors of someone with autism, autism or mental retardation, and that's actually hard to do in written. Like, if you actually read a lot of stories, not just fan fiction, but reading in general, it's not exactly easy to get subtleties of someone with autism or someone with mental retardation down on the written word. In a visual story, like a movie or a TV show, then yeah, it's actually pretty easy to do that. Sure, you have a risk of characterizing it, but it's easier than on the written word. It's just very hard to translate all the nuances and slight subtleties of someone with mental retardation down. So it comes off as very realistic in this story that Daria's situation was handled as good as it could be. Like, I do think the story did suffer from the character development and from the fact the story is actually really short compared to Daria 2007. That's like that chapter had like 18 chapters, 18 or so chapters. But this one only has 3 plus an epilogue. I thought it was fine for the length. Aunt Amy is our central character in this story. I think she's fine outside of the climax. I do, like I said, I really wish that climax had us go into her mindset slowly just shattering upon the realization. I just think that would have made that scene so much more impactful than what we got. But outside of that, Aunt Amy was done actually pretty well. Like you see her, the well-meaning, cool aunt who loves Daria, but over the course of the story, slowly starts to resent her because, Daria is taking up more and more of her life, and she wants to become, rich and famous and stuff like that. Daria is just slowly encroaching on that, and it starts to wear on her mentally. Like, you can actually see that on her behavior and in her face. Not as fast as I would have liked it, or not as long, but I do think it was excellently well done outside of the climax. I just really didn't think the climax was good. And then finally we got Jane. Jane being the moderator, she's kind of introduced halfway through the story. She did make a cameo when Amy and Daria first got to Lawndale, and they shopped around. They ran into Jane Lane, so he's like, "Hi," and Jane Lane kind of being a friend to Daria. You can see Jane slowly take that role that Aunt Amy had, because once they're reintroduced to Jane, that's when we actually start to see the difference between Aunt Amy and Jane. Like Aunt Amy is slowly starting to not like Daria, while Jane just immediately takes a liking to her because she feels, she wants to help Daria out. Like, I do sympathize with Jane and Aunt Amy and Daria herself. I do think these are realistic portrayals of people. They're very much real. They're very raw. For the lack of time Jane had, she was very fleshed out very quickly and very well. And the fact that, she's homeless, her parents just flat out abandoned her in Trent. Trent is kind of going through a depressive state of in between jobs, stuff like that. Well, Jane wants to make a little better life for herself, but she doesn't have that. But she doesn't know what she wants to do with her life. And so the story, that's why the epilogue plays as it is, with Jane actually finding what she wants to do with her life by helping, start helping mentally efficient kids, starting with not Jane, starting with Daria, because if she can help Daria, then she can help anyone. So I really like that idea of Jane slowly finding her passion, finding what she wants to do with her life, and then pursuing it to the best of her abilities. While also keeping her job, stuff like that, because that just seems really weird. I mean, not really weird. It seems very human. These are very human characters. Yes, there were Quinn and Helen, but they don't really show up enough. They disappear partway through chapter 2, and we don't see them again. So it just doesn't really make sense to talk about Helen and Quinn. Outside of Quinn's a bitch and Helen's a workaholic. That's fine. That's it. And I really like, if there's one thing I would have to praise absolutely about the story, it's the characters. They're very well done. They're very human. They're very fleshed out. Especially Jean, given that she had half the story to work with, while we got to know Daria and Amy more. And all the characters were very human. They were very three-dimensional for what the story was trying to do. And I think this is probably the strongest part of the story, in the fact that they gave real response. When it came to Daria, and Aunt Amy chose to run, but Jane, finding what she wants to do in life, stuck around because she realized Daria has no one left, and so I have to help her. Not because Jane owes them or anything, because she found out what she wants to do in life, and she wants to help Daria out of the goodness of her heart, not for monetary value, not for greed or anything like what Aunt Amy is going to do now with fame and fortune, but just wanting to help Daria be the best she can be out of the goodness of her heart. I actually cried when I read the epilogue. When it said that Jane constantly coming back. I thought that was really touching. I thought that was really heartwarming, and it was sad. The story kind of reminds me of my life in a weird sort of way, with my aunt being Aunt Amy and my mom being Helen, sort of thing. Just replace workaholic with lazy bum, sort of thing. But anyway, yeah, I do think the story was carried by the characters. Like, if the characters weren't as good as they were, then the story would completely be actual crap. Like, the characters need to be good. The characters were amazing. If there's any reason to read the story, it'd just be the report and the characters connecting throughout the story. Especially the different dynamics between Amy and Jane, Jane and Daria and Amy. Like, their dynamic slowly changes over the course of the second half of the story. Was remarkably well done. Grammar. I didn't see any grammar. That's fine. Pacing. I do think the story is a little bit on the fast side. Not enough that I would say it's bad. Like, it's really not. Like, it moves just a little too fast. I do think it could have benefited from being slowed down just a smidge. Like, just to get us more into the mindset of Jane and Daria. Not Daria. Jane and Amy, and how, their relationship with Daria is slowly changing. I think that would have made certain parts of the story better, because we don't really go into their mindset enough. But it's not bad for what it is in terms of pacing. I do think it moves at a good enough pace that we still get to know the characters enough. But I just really wish it could have slowed down at least a little bit more to get more into depth of all three characters' mindset, so to speak. But I do think the pacing is fine. Yeah. Like I said, it's fine enough that I just can't go straight up bash it. Like, yeah, that's fine. Final thoughts. The final thoughts section. Would I recommend the story? Actually, I would. I don't think it's as good as Daria 2007. I would actually put it just right behind Daria 2007. I do think they do have similar themes. They just really go about it in different ways. With 2007 being more dark, but it slipped through my hands, being more depressive. But they do have slightly similar themes, like abandonment and stuff like that, and they're just it's two sides of the same coin. Here's what Daria would happen if she was more dark. But this one was more if she was more depressing. It's sort of thing. It's a realistic sort of scenario. Favorite part, I would have to say the epilogue. I just think that epilogue was beautifully done. With instead of taking it being from Daria or Jane's point of view, it's from a group of orderlies' point of view. Like, and they're just watching and they're just wondering. It's like, wait, what? This lady constantly comes back. This D, hurt all of us at least one time, but she keeps coming back. It's like maybe she found something worth living for, And they're just wondering and looking at Jane and saying that she found, she's really wanting to go out of her way to help this lady. Maybe it's friends, maybe it's family. I just thought that was really touching in a very sort of bittersweet way. I thought that part was beautifully done. It was beautifully written, despite the fact that it was from a new character's point of view at the very end of the story. I think it was handled with enough panache that you can really feel that Jane does love Daria like a sister or even a mother. And it really drives home the point of all the themes throughout the story, kind of culminating in this one scene. And it's really depressing. But it was excellently well done. I would actually recommend the story. I'm not even like I already said that, right? Yeah, I did say that. Yeah, I would recommend the story just to read that epilogue because the epilogue was beautiful. Any changes I would have made? Really, just slowed down the story a smidge and got into the character in Jane and Jane and Amy's mindset a little bit more. That's pretty much it. Yeah, you couldn't. You don't even have to take anything out. You just add a couple paragraphs, of all the situation going in their mind and their slow changing thoughts of Daria. I just think that would have been better, especially in the climax. The climax wasn't bad. It was weak though. It was very weak because of how rushed that execution is. So that is my review on It Slipped Through My Hands Like a Shadow Like a Dream. I do apologize to Donna because she wanted this to be an hour review, but I couldn't. 40 plus minutes. I mean, that's good, right? I do think I don't think it's bad. Quick, bro! I'll do this. I'm completely stalling to make it an hour. What do you mean, no? Okay, fine, I'll end it. Stupid Pokemon. Don't glare at me. Yes, okay, honestly, I just did that little bit just to try and stall the video out a little bit more, to get it closer to an hour. But then I realized I'm being an idiot. So, next video I'm making is actually not going to be a fanfiction review or a fanfiction reading. It's actually going to be an update video. It's going to be something. I'm going to be talking about something big, something huge, and I can't wait to talk about it. But it's going to be tomorrow. So this has been Dark Symphony 777, and cut.